Hi, Max Recapped here. Today I am going to explain an American psychological thriller film called Hard Candy. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care.
The commences with a flirty chat between two people named Thonggirl14 and Lensman 319. The chat goes on for some minutes and ends with a meet set up between the two of them. Hayley, who is Thonggirl14 and age 14, arrives at Nighthawks early and eats chocolate while she waits for Lemsman 319. As she orders more, Jeff walks in and tells her not to eat too much chocolate. Jeff, who's a 32-year-old man, introduces himself as Lensman 319 and teases Hayley into getting more chocolate. They both order some more chocolate and coffee. After getting their order, they sit down to enjoy their treat. They discuss actresses, their mistakes and some books. Hayley stutters in her speech as she doesn't want to sound insulting to Jeffrey. After eating, Hayley sees a green shirt she likes and Jeff gets it for her. They then discuss the Nighthawks concert and how painful it was for Hayley to miss as Hayley walks to the bathroom to change into her new shirt. Jeff then tells her he has a recorded version of the concert in his home and he could send it to her when he gets home. After trying on the shirt, Hayley convinces Jeff to take her to his home. He succumbs to her and takes her to his car. They both drive off to Jeff's residence. Upon reaching there, Hayley listens to the concert as Jeff approaches her with a drink for her. She reluctantly accepts it and walks to the kitchen counter and pours herself some juice. They both discuss their ages when Hayley asks about the girls pasted on his wall. Jeff tells her he does his photography business in his home. Just then, Jeff shows her his studio and Hayley is impressed. Jeff then tells them to toast and Hayley obeys. Hayley keeps asking Jeff if he gets emotionally involved with his clients and Jeff tells her he doesn't have any personal business with his clients. They get to the kitchen to get some more juice. Just then, Jeff spills the beans on the one girl named Janelle he made love with in the past. He also tells Hayley the particular model signed with Ford afterward. This impresses Hayley and they discuss further supermodels and other things. Just then, Hayley asks Jeff to take her photo. She then runs to play some music on his MP3 as Jeff follows her to take her photo. Unfortunately, Jeff feels dizzy and passes out seconds later. When he comes to, he notices he's tied to a chair. He then sees Hayley who confesses to drugging his juice so he could pass out. Jeff still thinks she's joking and tells her to stop when Hayley breaks the ice and tells him playtime is over. Jeff asks her if this is some kind of teenage joke when she says it's teenage alright but not a joke. Jeff then realizes he's actually being held captive in his own home. Jeff struggles to free himself for the first time and shouts for help. However, Hayley sprays some liquid in his mouth and tells him no one will hear him. Jeff then asks her why she's doing this and she indirectly accuses him for his immoral tendency toward minors. She explains she used different usernames on different platforms and Jeff kept chatting them all up. They then discuss more things about the seriousness of the situation while Hayley puts on Jeff's coat and asks him why he'd go so far as to charm a 14-year-old girl like herself. She then accuses him of being morally corrupt and tells him she's not letting him go until she is ready to do that. She rolls him to a pink room and searches for something in the drawers. Hayley then says she's looking for what he uses on his victims. Just then, Jeff explains that he doesn't have and that he has completed other projects on nature as well. He directs her to a part in his drawers so she can see for herself. Hayley sees through his words and just keeps searching for his equipment. She keeps accusing Jeff of being an immoral guy and he keeps denying it. Just then, Hayley sees a bunch of letters and reads them. Later that night, she reads the letter to Jeff who is clearly embarrassed about his situation. Hayley makes fun of him and checks out his PC. She navigates through his PC and finds out he deleted some pictures. She gets more suspicious as she walks towards him and tries to get some information from him. She says she's looked through his entire house and has found nothing in there. She then walks further into the home in frustration, and keeps trashing his stuff, hoping to find something that'd incriminate him. Meanwhile, Jeff struggles to free himself from his ropes when Hayley sees a pile of rocks in a casting. She takes out some of the rocks to see a safe underneath a section of the casting. She smiles and goes to ask for the combination from Jeff. Jeff obviously tells her to take her time as he tries to get into her head. He says she was looking for a way to release all that anger she's had on her parents. Since they don't care that much about her, Hayley pretends to be affected by all Jeff was saying and only laughs it off. She then proceeds to open the safe herself. She tries a couple of passwords and doesn't get it at all. Jeff says since she's an honor student, she should figure it out in no time. A little while later, Hayley cracks open the safe. She opens it to find photos of some underage girls. Just then, she sees a photo of a girl who appears different than others so Hayley asks why she's the odd one out. Jeff knocks her out and rolls his chair to the pink room. He finds something to defend himself, picks it up and rolls his chair back to the living room. However, he doesn't find Hayley on the floor anymore. As he looks for her, Hayley appears from his blind spot and grabs him again. Hayley threw a tantrum of pain as her stomach was hurting. When Jeff comes to, he sees himself tied up again. Hayley interrogates him about the odd one-out girl she found in his stash. Jeff tells her to call the cops, so he turns himself in. Hayley says she's too smart for that and says she's going to emasculate him. Jeff panics as she puts some ice on his body to numb the nerves. Hayley then picks up his computer and pretends to chat up Janelle. Janelle is the model Jeff admitted that he misused her when they got to his house. She then actually sends Janelle the messages, and Jeff tells her she'd get in big trouble if she will do something to him. Jeff also tells her people who hurt others don't forget what they did. He also lets her know she's too young to be haunted by such an unkind act on a man. Hayley sees through his mind game again, and it backfires on Jeff. She uses the same strategy on Jeff by asking him what he'd have done if she said the same things to him when he was exploiting others. Jeff just stares into space. Hayley soon finishes with the computer and removes the ice bag. Jeff screams for help, and Hayley quickly sprays some liquid in Jeff's mouth to shut him up. She then proceeds to start the procedure. Jeff tries to guilt trip Hayley, so she stops the procedure, but she continues anyway. She uses the bag of ice and remembers she needs to sterilize the equipment to use for the procedure. She gets some drink and uses it to sterilize the equipment and the skin around. Jeff panics and tries to bribe Hayley but fails again. Hayley goes outside Jeff's house to get something as Jeff struggles desperately to free himself from captivity. While outside, a gardener named Jody is seen trimming her flowers when she sees Hayley on the roof of the house looking for something. She looks unbothered about it and continues with her garden. Inside, Jeff almost falls off the operating table when Hayley walks back into the room again. Jeff asks Hayley to finish him off so he doesn't have to go through the horrible procedure. Hayley ignores him and rolls him to one of his studios. Upon reaching the studio, she picks up a camcorder and sets it up to record the procedure. Just then, Jeff narrates his experience of how his 5-year-old niece, who had a crush on him when he was 9 years old, tempted him. So, one night, she does it again with little Jeff laughing due to the tickling when his aunt comes in and catches the two of them in an awkward situation. She tells her daughter to get back into the bathtub, which she does, and takes Jeff downstairs. She then turns on the stove, holding him over. Jeff cries as he fears she might drop him on the fire. Just then, she offers a last warning to Jeff to never touch her daughter again. The next day, Jeff's mother comes to take him home. Hayley breaks the silence and tells him she'd be starting the procedure soon. Jeff begs her not to do this, but she doesn't listen to him. He tells her she needs help and that he could help her. He says he'd do anything she says. Hayley ponders over this and tells Jeff to send the email to a lady. Jeff refuses to do that and shouts out for help again. Disappointed, Hayley takes the PC away from the operating table and tells Jeff to prepare for the procedure. She also warns him not to move around too much or she could damage an important artery. Jeff stares into space as he accepts his fate. Hayley begins the procedure and goes through with it. After finishing the procedure, she patches Jeff up and offers to give him balls as a souvenir. Jeff just lay in the bed wincing from the immense pain. Hayley then goes forward and cleans the sink and offers to give Jeff some water. After forcing him to drink the water, Jeff asks her why she's being nice to him now that she's done the worst possible thing she could ever do. Hayley says she pities him for the state he's in now and goes to take a shower. While she's away, Jeff struggles to free himself from the ropes and cries intensely over what Hayley did to him. He then comes to his senses and prepares to brace himself for her next attack. He picks up a phone and dials 911 when he suddenly realizes it wasn't necessary. He stares at her surgery equipment and picks up a scalpel. He runs into the bathroom and opens the shower to harm Hayley. Just then, Hayley comes from his blind spot and touches him. As Jeff passes out, Hayley starts clearing evidence of her being there. She puts everything back in place like she was never there. While at it, Jeff wakes up and crawls to his living room. Hayley sees him and teases him till he passes out again. She finishes cleaning up and types something on Jeff's computer without saving it. She then calls one of Jeff's acquaintances and talks them into coming to Jeff's house. In the next scene, she picks up Jeff and sets him up like he's about to hang himself. She stands him up on a chair and lets the holding ropes loose. Jeff tiptoes on the chair to keep himself alive. He then tells Hayley that she's insane, to which she agrees. As they discuss, someone knocks on the door and Hayley rushes to open the door. She sees Jody at the door and Hayley introduces herself as Jeff's niece. Jody then asks her if she is a babysitter. Hayley says she does, but not at the moment because she'd be leaving for the city soon. Jody is a bit disappointed, but she still asks that she give Jeff the cookies her daughter baked for him. Hayley collects the cookies and forgets to pay Jody. Jody asks for her payment and Hayley rushes back in to take some money from Jeff and pays Jody. Just then, Jody asks her how Jeff's roof was and tells her she saw her on the roof earlier in the day. Hayley remembers she was there and tries to tell a lie about a leak. Jody catches on to her lie but pretends she's none the wiser and leaves. Hayley walks back into the house and continues. She gives Jeff two options. One of them was to take himself out and the other, much worse option, was for her to leave him until someone finds him and he gets convicted for his crimes. Jeff assures her that they'd find her and tells her she'd spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder. Hayley tells him that's not going to happen and recounts possible scenarios when this case gets investigated. Just then, Jeff jumps off the chair and tries to fight Hayley. Hayley breaks free and runs out of the house. Meanwhile, Jeff's able to untie himself yet again. He picks up a knife and starts searching for Hayley. Hayley rotates the house and enters through the back door. She hears Jeff looking for her and sets up a trap just like she always does. Jeff sees the trap and gets frustrated over her smart thinking. He finally accepts who he is and hears a thud on the roof. Meanwhile, Janelle drives all the way to Jeff's house crying. Jeff finally gets to the roof and gets into a fight with Hayley. As he threatens Hayley, she fights back. Jeff tries to attack when she says she's already called Janelle and she was on her way. She then tells Jeff that the only way to stop himself from trouble is to finish himself off. As they keep talking, Janelle arrives and Jeff tries to duck out of sight. Hayley tells him to end it all by acting upon her suggestion, so he doesn't get to die in prison. Jeff whines over his impending circumstances. He then tells Hayley he didn't kill Donna and that it was two other guys. To his surprise, Hayley says one of the guys named Aaron says Jeff did it before he died. Jeff then finishes himself off. The movie ends as Hayley walks away from Jeff's house in her red hoodie.
This film has rating of 7.1 out of 10. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.